Imagine being ripped from your home after watching your city fall, only to become property of a Persian emperor with absolute power over your body and life. For thousands of women throughout the ancient world, this wasn't a nightmare, it was reality. The Persian imperial system created one of history's most elaborate mechanisms for the systematic exploitation of women. What we've discovered about their methods will change how you view this supposedly enlightened empire forever. 1. The imperial harem system, luxury prisons of gold. Behind the gilded walls of Persian palaces lurked a reality far darker than the opulence suggested. The imperial harem, known as the Andaran, wasn't merely a collection of women kept for pleasure. It was an intricate political institution with its own economy, hierarchy, and brutal governance system. These sprawling complexes housed hundreds, sometimes thousands of women who, despite their lavish surroundings, lived as prisoners in a world of silk and gold. The physical architecture of these spaces tells a revealing story. Archaeological excavations at Persepolis and Susa have uncovered harem quarters deliberately designed to control movement. High walls, single entry points, and strategic positioning within the innermost sections of palaces ensured complete isolation. Windows, when they existed at all, opened only onto interior courtyards rather than facing outward. The message was clear. These women would never leave. Marble floors inlaid with lapis lazuli, walls adorned with intricate mosaics, and fountains flowing with scented water created an illusion of privilege while masking captivity. The Persian emperors understood that luxury served as psychological manipulation. Gilded cages remained cages nonetheless. Within these ornate prisons existed a rigid social hierarchy. At the pinnacle stood the chief wife, often a Persian noblewoman or foreign princess whose marriage cemented political alliances. Below her were official concubines who had borne royal children, followed by favored concubines without children, entertainers, and finally, the enormous staff of servants. Eunuchs, castrated men who survived a brutal procedure with high mortality rates, served as the emperor's enforcers within the harem walls. These men, often captured in warfare or purchased specifically for this purpose, became the perfect guardians, unable to sexually threaten the emperor's exclusive access to the women, yet physically capable of enforcing his will when necessary. The emperors rarely entered the harem themselves, instead summoning women to their private chambers. One account describes Princess Mandana of Media, captured after her father's defeat, who refused the emperor's summons and was consequently denied food for 3 days until her resistance broke. Such stories were common, as court records from the Achaemenid period document severe punishment for those who resisted. At its height under Darius I, the imperial harem at Susa contained facilities housing over 1,000 women. Administrative tablets detail the allocation of food, clothing, and cosmetics, evidence of meticulous management of these human collections. Perhaps most disturbing was the harem's function as a diplomatic tool. Foreign princesses were gifted to the emperor or taken as war prizes, their bodies becoming the physical manifestation of treaties and conquests. These royal women provided legitimacy to Persian rule over conquered territories. Recent scholarship has revealed that despite material comfort, these women existed in permanent captivity, stripped of agency and repurposed as imperial property. Their jewels and fine clothing weren't gifts, but markers of ownership, distinguishing them as prized possessions rather than free individuals. 2. The collection process, human tribute from conquered lands. The systematic acquisition of women wasn't an afterthought of Persian conquests. It was a primary objective. When the armies of Cyrus, Darius, or Xerxes appeared on the horizon, specialized units already carried detailed instructions for what modern historians might call human resource acquisition. These weren't random kidnappings, but a methodical process refined over generations of imperial expansion. Persian military expeditions included officials known as Ganzabara, collectors of human treasures, who operated alongside regular troops. These men weren't soldiers, but administrators with specific expertise in evaluating women according to rigid imperial standards. They carried written guidelines detailing desirable traits: height, complexion, hair quality, childbearing potential, and musical or artistic abilities. One fragmentary tablet from Persepolis lists 17 distinct categories for female classification, including singers whose voices please the king, and those with skin like polished ivory. The moment a city fell, these collectors went to work. Women were separated from male captives and gathered in temporary holding areas, often temple courtyards. Historical accounts describe scenes where mothers clutched daughters while imperial officials pried them apart, marking them with dye on their foreheads to indicate their initial classification. The Greek historian Ctesias, who served as a physician in the Persian court, wrote of women crying out to their gods as they were evaluated as one might inspect horses at market. The evaluation process was cold and efficient. Women stood in lines while officials moved among them, checking teeth to determine age, examining hands for signs of labor, and requiring demonstrations of skills like dancing or playing instruments. Those with exceptional beauty or talents received gold marks on their documentation, while others received silver or bronze designations that would determine their fate in the imperial system. But the collection process wasn't merely aesthetic, it was deeply political. Women of royal or noble blood from conquered territories faced special scrutiny. Court documents from Darius Thursukker's reign reveal a deliberate strategy of using these high-status women to cement Persian control over newly acquired territories. A princess from a defeated kingdom might be forced to marry a Persian satrap, governor, appointed to rule her homeland, creating the appearance of legitimacy while ensuring her family's cooperation. The transport of these women to the imperial centers was itself a carefully managed operation. Clay tablets discovered near Persepolis detail supply requisitions for these human caravans: veiled wagons, specific food rations, and armed guards. One tablet notes the provision of sleep herbs to keep women docile during transport. Those destined for the imperial harem traveled in special covered carriages, their value too great to risk exposure to sun or public view that might diminish their worth. Military commanders operated under strict quotas. A surviving administrative text from Darius III's reign specifies that campaigns in the eastern provinces were expected to yield no fewer than 30 maidens of exceptional quality and 100 of standard quality per season. Generals who failed to meet these human acquisition targets faced the same penalties as those who failed to secure enough gold or territory. This systematic collection served multiple strategic purposes beyond satisfying royal desire. By removing young women from conquered populations, the Persians undermined those communities' ability to reproduce and recover. Simultaneously, the redistribution of these women as rewards to loyal Persian nobles created a network of obligation and privilege that reinforced imperial hierarchy. The true brilliance of this system was its psychological impact. When a Persian general presented the emperor with the daughters of a defeated king, the act communicated more than military victory. It demonstrated the complete dismantling of an enemy's social fabric. As one inscription from Darius's palace boasts, "Their men I defeated in battle, their women I took for the pleasure of my court. Thus do all lands come under my shadow." 3. Preparation rituals, breaking body and spirit. Taking a captive woman from battleground to bedchamber wasn't a simple matter of transportation. The Persian court demanded a complete transformation of these new acquisitions through a process so meticulous that scholars have compared it to a systematic rebirth. The shadow of Persian dominance penetrated the very identities of these women through a ritualized 12-month metamorphosis that archaeological evidence now reveals was far more sinister than mere beautification. The Book of Esther provides our most detailed account of this year-long ordeal, describing how, for 6 months, the women were treated with oil of myrrh and for another 6 with perfumes and cosmetics. But recent translations of administrative tablets from Persepolis reveal the clinical brutality behind these seemingly luxurious treatments. One tablet records, "For the women of the king's pleasure, 6 measures of oil of myrrh daily, 2 measures of henna powder, 1 measure of crushed pearl for skin lightening." These weren't spa treatments but painful transformations. The myrrh oil contained caustic additives that burned the skin, creating temporary inflammation followed by peeling. This process, repeated over months, gradually altered skin texture and tone. Women's bodies were literally remade to match Persian ideals of beauty: lighter skin, softer texture, and complete hairlessness except for the head. Diet control formed another pillar of transformation. Women were fed specific foods believed to alter their scent, taste, and physical form. A fragmented clay tablet lists, for the new women, no foods of their homeland. Daily ration of sweet wine, almond paste, and saffron gruel. These restrictive diets often left women malnourished but compliant. Their bodies weakened while developing the physical characteristics deemed desirable. The psychological aspects of preparation were even more devastating. Women underwent what one Persian court document described as the emptying of memory. Forbidden from speaking their native languages, they were beaten for cultural expressions from their homelands. One account describes a Lydian woman who hummed a childhood song and had her mouth packed with ashes as punishment. "They shall forget the names of their fathers and the lands of their birth," states an imperial decree from the reign of Xerxes. Language instructors used a technique modern psychologists would recognize as forced dissociation, requiring women to speak of themselves in the third person until their previous identity became foreign even to themselves. Archaeologists working at Persepolis have uncovered specialized tools used in these transformation rituals: bronze tweezers for hair removal, ceramic vessels for pigments, and more disturbing items like tongue clamps believed to control speech during language training. Most chilling are the so-called correction implements, small bronze rods with flattened ends used to strike women who failed to perform movements or behaviors correctly. Sexual education formed a crucial component of preparation. Eunuch instructors taught specific positions, sounds, and techniques considered pleasing to the emperor. One fragmentary text records, "The woman shall learn 40 postures of pleasure and 7 sounds of delight." Women were evaluated regularly, with those failing to master these skills facing reassignment to lower positions or physical punishment. Perhaps most devastating was the requirement for constant performance. Women were taught never to appear tired, sad, or ill in the emperor's presence. As one court document states, "The king's women shall show only pleasure at his approach and gratitude at his touch." This emotional labor, maintained day and night, completed the erasure of their authentic selves. For royal women who had once wielded power in their homelands, the preparation process included additional humiliations designed to break their sense of authority. A princess who had once commanded armies might be made to serve food to eunuchs. A queen who had ruled a kingdom could be forced to demonstrate sexual techniques before an audience of court officials. As we've seen, the Persian Empire's celebrated legacy of multicultural tolerance and administrative innovation stands in sharp contrast to its systematic exploitation of women. What's particularly unsettling is how methodically this abuse was institutionalized, enshrined in imperial policy and infrastructure rather than being the whims of individual rulers. This darker aspect of Persian civilization challenges us to re-examine how empires throughout history have built their glory on invisible suffering. The exploitation of vulnerable populations, particularly women, remains history's most consistent through line. If these hidden narratives intrigue you, subscribe to History on Fleek. Next time, we'll expose how Assyrian kings used psychological warfare to break entire civilizations before a single arrow was fired.